Hello, and welcome to AWS Partner Online Series. Today's session is part of Together We Innovate, an online event to help you understand how AWS partners are supporting our customers' cloud computing journey. My name is Sandeep Sengupta, and I'm a Senior Analytics Specialist at Amazon Web Services, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's webinar. In today's session, you will hear from Umbrella Infocare, our AWS Premier Consulting Partner, and MyTeam11, who will share their experience of leveraging AWS Analytics services for building a data lake, which is able to handle very high volume, high variety, and high velocity of data, and paving the way of creating real-time inferences and supporting new use cases for their businesses. So before we start today's session, let me share some housekeeping rules. When you join today's webinar, you selected to join either by phone call or your computer audio. If for any reason you would like to change your selection, you can do so by accessing your audio pane in your control panel. Also from this control panel, you will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters by typing your questions in the questions pane. We will collect these questions and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's session. If you are not able to get to your question due to time paucity, we will plan to respond to each of you personally through email. At the end of today's session, you will also receive a set of survey questions. Please do take the time to provide your feedback so that we can continue to improve and understand what you require to become successful in your business. This is also a platform to highlight if you require any further assistance from AWS and Umbrella Infocare after this session. Finally, this session is being recorded, and we will share a copy of the recording by the end of next week. So today we will be hearing from Nishant Sharma from Umbrella Infocare and our esteemed customer Nitish Bugalia, who is the CTO of MyTeam11. Nishant Sharma is a hands-on technocrat who strives to understand customer problems and goals to devise solutions that work for them. Nishant brings 2.5 decades of rich experience in technology leadership to his role as CTO at Umbrella. He has spearheaded multiple efforts to craft internal solutions, frameworks, and processes for accelerating timely delivery and deployment. He focuses on building a practice that hones DevOps, automation, cloud-native apps, and data analytics. Nitish is a product management professional with 12 plus years of experience. He believes in building products that drive exceptional customer experiences. Practitioner of agile principles and people leadership, he uses his ability to strike balance between technical and business requirements to drive large-scale projects from idea to market, collaborating with cross-functional teams. So before I hand over to the two speakers, let me do a quick introduction of Amazon Web Services or AWS. For almost 15 years, AWS has been world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. AWS has been continually expanding its services to support virtually any cloud workload, and it's now has more than 200 fully featured services for compute, storage, databases, networking, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and industry-leading analytics services. AWS Analytics Services helps you build scalable data lake and is the fastest way to get answers from all of your data to all your users. Millions of customers, including fastest growing startups, largest of enterprises, leading government agencies, trust AWS to power their infrastructure, become more agile, and incur lower costs. To learn more about AWS, please do visit aws.amazon.com. Now, partners are a key part of the AWS family. There are tens of thousands of AWS partners across the globe. More than 90% of Fortune 100 companies and the majority of Fortune 500 companies use AWS partner solutions and services. AWS partners are uniquely positioned to help businesses take full advantage of all that AWS has to offer and accelerate journey to the cloud. AWS's relationship with Umbrella Infocare is very important and special to us. Over the years, Umbrella Infocare has partnered with AWS by bringing their technology and domain knowledge to the fore and help us deliver some of the most complex solutions for customers across the segments. They have successfully delivered large data lakes projects and help customers migrate applications to modern cloud infrastructure on AWS. And this is why we are very excited to have Umbrella Infocare today to talk about what they do, as well as share how they have helped customers like MyTeam11 in their journey to get more out of data. Over to you, Nishant.
Thanks, Sandeep. Thank you so much for setting up the context and the wonderful introduction. Um, I'll take this opportunity to introduce a little bit, more in detail about Umbrella Infocare as the organization. So the organization was started in 2012 by two gentlemen, Gurpreet Singh and Sanjay Agrawal. Both of them, Sanjay and Gurpreet, are industry veterans, and before starting Umbrella Infocare, they were running another organization called Momentum Infocare that was acquired by a Japanese automation company, Ricoh. And when 2012 we started Umbrella Infocare, AWS was our first alliance. And back then in 2012, there were very few customers in India, and there were even lesser organizations providing the cloud services. But today, I can proudly say that we are a premier consulting partner with AWS, which is the highest tier of partnership with AWS globally. We have seen 100% growth year on year in our revenue as well as in our headcount. And today we are a strong team of 175 plus employees, who are working, across the globe for our, customers. We have served more than 250 customers and successfully delivered more than 400 cloud projects. That includes cloud migration, DevOps, automation, containerization, data analytics, data lake, data warehouse implementation, and developing cloud native applications for our customers. Apart from being a premier consulting partner, we are also an AWS certified managed service provider and also an AWS certified migration competency partners, as well as certified by AWS for DevOps competency and for Microsoft workload on AWS. We are also a part of various AWS programs, such as well architected reviews or immersion days, which we very regularly participate with AWS to conduct these reviews and immersion days for our customers. With this, I would like to move to the services, what we offer. Okay, fine. So it's taking a little time to move the slide. Apologies for that. So these are the 6 key services we are offering to our customers, and I'll start from the right hand side. As this is the first service which we started in the beginning of our operations, the cloud migration, where we are helping our customers to do the readiness assessment for their cloud migration, how prepared they are, what kind of IT landscape they have, and help them define the business case or find the total cost of ownership if they have to run their operations on AWS cloud, and then work with them to define a roadmap for the migration projects, identify the application for the pilot execution, work with them to set up their landing zone and the operating model. And once this is done, we walk the path with them for the entire migration journey. And during this execution, we work with their IT and application teams, and our technology and project teams provide all kind of support during the migration, whether it is related to application, database, infrastructure, virtualization, etc. The second service from the right, the managed service, is the service which we are providing to our customers to run their operations uninterrupted 24/7. Once they have migrated to cloud, they require somebody who can provide them that kind of support services, and that's where we provide support. This service includes 24 by 7 operations, including monitoring as well as incident support. The service also include periodic analysis of their cloud environment for architectural, security, and cost optimization recommendations to, so that they can improve their performance of their application, and at the same time they can optimize their cloud spend over a period of time. I will now come to the left hand side of the two services, the cloud native application development and the big data analytics. Both these services are, we started offering to our customers based upon the feedback what we have got from our customers and what we have seen. We realize that customers are migrating to cloud. However, they are not really leveraging the cloud native services or the real advantage of the cloud. Rather than they are using cloud for their monolithic applications as, another data center, and that's where, customers were, understanding that cloud has the power, but, because of the unavailability of cloud skills internally, they were not able to leverage those, additional power of cloud of, agility and on-demand cost models. So we started the cloud native application development, where we started working with, our customers to help them modernize their application and transform their monolithic application onto, microservices based architecture or cloud native application architecture, and leverage more, cloud managed services. Data analytics is also a similar service we started, offering to our customers from 2019, and so far we have delivered multiple projects, maybe more than 18, 20 projects we would have successfully delivered. At this, I am only counting the large projects, not the small execution, where we see the customers are moving to cloud, or even the customers who are not on cloud are generating a lot of data, and they really want to leverage cloud analytics services, but they are not really able to start that journey because of various reasons, as I said, about the availability of skilled resources internally. So that's another service what we started. The services in the middle, the DevOps automation and the cloud security services, are actually bundled in all our services, be it migration service or the managed services or the application development of big data analytics. However, we as an organization also offer these services independently. Especially if I talk about the DevOps automation, we are working with organizations to automate their application release processes by deploying the CI/CD pipelines for them. We are helping organizations to containerize their application, transform the monolithic application into microservices architecture, build the containers, and then finally helping them orchestrate those containers using AWS services such as ECS or EKS, or even working with them to leverage serverless architecture on AWS cloud. Under the cloud security services, we are primarily offering the assessment of the cloud environment and the cloud security posture of the customer's cloud environment, and then identifying the non-compliances and the gaps as per the security best practices laid out by AWS and CIS. And if the customer also has their corporate policy which they really want to implement, we help customers to define those policies and assess the environment against those policies to identify the non-compliances. Once the gaps are identified, non-compliances are listed out, we work with them to identify the right tools and services and the security measures that are required to be implemented to remediate those non-compliances and gaps. And then finally, we work with the customer organizations to implement those security measures and security tools. Here we are using a lot of AWS services, starting with Guard Duty, Security Hub, Trusted Advisor, Inspector, Detective, CloudTrail, Cloud Config. There are many to list down, and then we are also working with third-party tools from say Checkpoint and Trend Micro for their deep security services and assessment of cloud security posture and for cloud security posture management. Okay, so just moving to the list of some of our esteemed customers, and this is a very small list, I would say. As I had already said, that we have served more than 250, approximately 300 customers so far. Obviously, we cannot list all of them in one slide, so we have picked some of them, some of the names. And as you can see that, there is a wide variety of customers from different industries we have worked with. Some of the customers I would like to really highlight here are, Alt Balaji Health Card, where we have, implemented data analytics, platforms, Dalmia Siemens, where we have implemented data lake and data warehouse and ingested data from various kind of business application, including their ERP platform, and then Jungly Games and MyTeam11's of core. We will be talking about MyTeams11 in our today's presentation. With a lot of other organizations, we have worked on other services which are cloud migration, deployment, automation, and big data analytics and application development. Okay, so quickly moving to the segment which is related to our today's agenda, the data engineering and data analytics. So before we start talking about the MyTeam11 implementation and what we have done at the MyTeam11 and how they have benefited for that, I would like to share our thoughts on some of the established needs and the challenges in the industry related to big data analytics. So to share my experience and thought process that since the time world started, digital applications, web applications, mobile applications, we are generating a lot of data, and we are doing reporting and analytics from a very, very long time. But then why there is such a fuss about big data analytics? So in my opinion, the big data word is there for a very long time. However, the importance and relevance of big data has increased or grown manifold in recent times, because the organization of an average size would be using a good amount of applications, and they would be generating a lot of data beyond the transactional data. So conventionally, applications were only generating transactional data of financial transactions or sales and purchase and those kind of transactions. But now organizations are generating a lot of log data, a lot of user click stream data, a lot of monitoring data, a lot of tracking data, and with the invent of and the increase of IoT devices, the amount of data which is being generated is also humongous. So with all this, the large data set which is being available for businesses to leverage the real, insight from the data and use that data to improve their customer experience by providing them customized and personalized product offering, define and optimize their pricing strategy in real time, depending upon customers' behavior and responses to the offers, and also at the same time improving the overall performance of the applications and platforms using the telemetrics, using the log which is available in the huge amount. So these are some of the key possibilities which data analytics and the availability of the huge amount of data has opened for the businesses. However, at the same time, managing such a huge amount of data is also a little cumbersome and challenging. And the first of the multiple challenges what I have seen in my experience, that an average size of organization would be using 22 to 25 applications, and those applications would be generating data which is sitting in silos. They are generating data sitting in their local databases, generating data sometimes outside the database in various formats. And here I'm not talking about the large organization with multiple business interests. These are like average size organizations. And as I said that a lot of log data, IoT telemetrics data, and all of that data will add to this complication. And then the second thing is the variety of the data. When we look at the data today, we have structured data, we have unstructured data, which is available in variety of databases, whether we talk about relational databases or NoSQL databases, or various formats of files, whether it is text files, CSV, JSON, all these variety of data. And if I add the multimedia data, such as video, images, and audio files to the data sources, then the complexity grows multifolds, because ultimately that data is also very, very relevant for your data analytics needs. So all of this, put together, create a problem which is really very cumbersome and challenging to address for organization, because the applications are the line of business applications are not designed for the analytics need. They are architecturally focused on providing the best of the customer experience on the transactions. So these are some of the challenges. So we can say the variety of the data, the volume of the data, and the velocity by which the data is being generated are some of the challenges which overall impact the organization's data strategy. So in the previous slide, we talked about the need of the data analytics, as well as the some of the challenges of the huge amount of data organizations are generating. On this slide, we'll try to figure out how data lake can address those challenges and help organizations overcome those challenges and achieve the objectives of data analytics, and leverage the huge amount of data organizations are generating. So this is a pretty standard architecture or a diagram, I would say, which is representing a standard data lake where we have certain data sources at the left hand side, where we have structured and unstructured data. As I said that an organization may have variety of data sources which could be internal as well as external, because in today's day and time it is just not that organizations are dependent upon their internal applications, but they are integrating with a lot of third-party APIs, and data is being generated in third-party systems also. So it is important to consider those systems also as one of your data sources, and plan and make them part of your data lake. And at the just immediately after that, you have the data pipeline, which is ingesting data from all the data sources. And the three colorful boxes in the in the middle are representing the different layers of the data lake. Here on AWS cloud, this is in a way a representation of the AWS data lake, like AWS S3 as a service that we primarily use for data lake storage. So in principle or in definition, data lake is a central repository that allows you to store the variety of the data, structured or unstructured, in its raw format. And that is something which was conventionally not possible, because conventionally data warehouses or ODS kind of systems using databases were being used to consolidate and aggregate data from different applications. And the biggest challenge was, first of all, the target data structure and the schema has to be very well defined and structured well in advance. And also those data warehouse tools were very expensive on their licensing side, and the licensing were dependent upon the compute, and that would push organizations to purge data beyond a point. So let's say if the data is reaching a certain threshold in terms of size, they would purge the data so that they don't really need to increase the compute, because data was sitting with the compute only. And that's the I would say one of the biggest advantage data lakes provide today's time, where storages are de-linked with the compute, and you can store as much data as much you want, and you don't really have to transform your data and delete your raw data, because the cost of storage is not that much in today's day and time, with especially if you look at AWS S3, so it is almost negligible. So once you have your data as in one of the bucket called, let's say, raw bucket, and then you can have your glue and EMR transformation jobs that can be orchestrated to run on a periodic frequency. Those jobs can transform your data and bring the standardization. They can clean and enrich the data, and provide the staging layer, or a data which is consolidated and available for further business use cases. And then you can have your business use case specific transformation jobs that can transform, process, and aggregate data further, and provide that data in a business use case format in the structure. And then at the right hand side, as you can see, that there are different personas who can consume those data that is available in the S3 data lake or in the data warehouse for various business use cases, including reports and dashboards, logs and security. You can transform the data for various purposes. You can do predictive analysis, machine learning, etc. Another interesting, opportunity data lakes provide is for the data scientists. Data scientists were earlier dependent upon the operational data sources to run their ad hoc queries, and they had challenges that they were not allowed to run the data queries during the production peak hours, because that might impact their operations performance, and the customer experience might get impacted. While you have this kind of data lake implemented, data scientists can run their ad hoc queries based upon their business case and the requirement without worrying about the impact on the production systems, because it is completely delinked with your production systems once the data is ingested into the data lake. And you have data available at the variety of stages. You have data in the raw format, you have data in a cleansed and the aggregated format, and for business use cases also, so you can leverage. Another important aspect of data lake I would like to add here is, and this is from one of our experience, for one of our customer, we have implemented a campaign management system, which is more like a campaign data selector on top of a data lake. So as you can see, at the right hand side, you have consuming application. So this campaign management system becomes one of the consuming application. And once you have generated the customer segment data to run a campaign, you can feed the response of that campaign performance back to the data lake. Again, as you can see, this black line showing from right hand side to the bottom two, and just data as the response data and the campaign performance data is going back to the data lake. That means you are enriching your data lake. Over a period of time, you will have a lot of data generated, not only about your customers demographic, about the transactions they have done or the behavior they have shown on your platform, but also how they have reacted to your marketing campaigns. And then when you are using the data for your future use cases, even for the campaign management data selection, you can consider, you can factor their participation, their reaction, responses, and the performance on your previous marketing campaigns. So that is a advantage which organizations are achieving from the data lake kind of structure, because the applications are not different. It is not that one application is generating the data for customer, or another application is running the campaign, and in some other application the campaign performance data is sitting, because you have consolidated all of that data at one place. So that's another big advantage what I see in a lot of cases our customers are taking from data lakes. Okay, with this I would like to move further, and I would like to share some of the services we are providing as Umbrella Infocare, which are related to data analytics, broadly categorized in three broad categories: data engineering, analytics, and data ops. As I say, this data DevOps and the managed services. We work with organizations, help them define their data strategy, define their roadmap, help them build the data lake, build the data warehouse, do the transformation job, writing automation of those transformation job, help them migrate data from their legacy systems, or from their on-premise systems to cloud, and finally the implementation of data security in these kind of data lakes and data warehouses using AWS services. Data analytics is primarily the data modeling, and doing the data analysis and generating a lot of data reports that can be pushed to the end users and the customers, and building the visualization and the BI kind of reports using third-party application, or AWS QuickSight or Power BI, those kind of tools like Tableau, or QuickSight, or QuickSight, ClickView, and ClickSense. The third part, which is more of a data operations, data governance, automation of jobs, implementation of the right monitoring, infrastructure, so that right information can be captured, exceptions can be handled during the data implementation, data transformation, and entire data pipeline, and optimization of the existing data lakes and data warehouse, where customers have already implemented the data warehouses let's say on Redshift, they are using EMR or Glue or other AWS services. We help them optimize their performance and cost which they are spending on cloud for data analytics. Okay, with this, I'll like to introduce Nitish, who is the Chief Product Officer at MyTeam11 and oversees the product and strategy for the company. I have worked very closely with Nitish, and with my personal experience, I can say that Nitish is very passionate about the products he works on, and he believes in developing products that drive exceptional customer experiences, and he has great skills in striking the right balance of technology and businesses while developing large scale products. So Nitish, thank you so much for joining us. I understand it is tough time during the pandemic. A lot of people working from office, from home, working with large team members and managing the business expectation. You have still took time and the pain to join this webinar and share your experience with our audience. Thank you so much for joining, Nitish.
Thank you so much, Nishant, and thank you so much, Sandeep, for setting up the context beautifully. I think like data analytics and data, especially like the new age data lakes and all these products are extremely close to my heart. Like I've been a data analyst and at Capital One before I joined MyTeam11, and I always see like data proves to be the differentiator between like how you're driving your business and like ultimately how you're driving the customer experience. And hence it becomes even more important like you understand the entire life cycle of like how it is being generated and then how it is being used and essentially stored. And I think in your offerings also, like when you were introducing Umbrella, you rightly mentioned that storage has become so cheap. So rather than worrying about like what will I do with this with storing the data, and like earlier the organizations used to purge a lot of data. Like if we have the data, many a times we can find out the use cases for them later on, versus like not having the data at the first case. Like and that was the situation which MyTeam11 was going through, which I'll happily cover when we discuss further. But once again, like thank you for the opportunity. Very happy to share our story and contribute as much as I can.
Thank you so much, Nitish. So before we start talking about the case study, which is very close to our hearts, both of us, because we have worked on that, I would really appreciate if you can share a little bit more information on MyTeam11 as an organization and the kind of business and the operations you are in.
Absolutely. So MyTeam11 is a fantasy sports organization. It was started in 2016. Today we offer around like 10 different sports, primarily cricket, football, kabaddi, basketball, to more than 18 million plus of our registered user bases. We see close to 1 million plus now on an average in the months when there are high octane cricketing events like Euro Cup is going on or like IPL is going on. Like we see that number getting tripled or 4 times as well. And at the very peak, we handle roughly around about 100,000 requests per second across our different services, across our different platforms. We do more than $100 million in gross gaming revenues on the platform. And today we offer 4 products, 3 in the real money gaming category, which is MyTeam11 fantasy product, Rummy product as well as poker. And then just a couple of years ago, like I think 18 months ago, we started venturing into sports content delivery as well. And we started the live streaming of Pakistan Super League. And then since then, we have been providing great content for sports fans. And like the numbers are highly encouraging on the platform called Sports Striker as well. So overall, yes, like MyTeam11, we are passionate sports fan at our very core. But like any other digital business, like technology plays a huge role in terms of like how we are delivering the customer experiences, and the kind of passion that we see for the sports should translate directly into the products that we create as well. And that is the vision and the principle with which MyTeam11 operates. And that's where AWS essentially, as well as all the partner networks, have been very, very beneficial for us to continue to innovate on our existing tech stack and like keep on learning new things.
Thanks, Nitish, for such an elaborative introduction of MyTeam11, and this is really a very, very fascinating space and very growing space. I would say in India, and I know MyTeam11 is already doing fantastic there, but we wish all the luck you to do there. However, coming back to
Thank you.
the today's topic, on the data, how do you see data which you are generating, and I'm sure you are generating a huge amount of data, as I can see, looking at volumes and looking at the kind of requests you have explained in your introduction. So what is the importance of the data in your industry, and how do you see this is this is or this may benefit the business in long term?
So data essentially today, like data is like gold, literally like a golden like. I think everybody has heard that simile quite a few times, but that is one thing that I always insist as well. Especially for a business like us, like just taking an example, like an IPL game essentially starts at 8 o'clock and 7:30 p.m. is when the toss happens, and that is when you start seeing the majority of the customers coming onto the MyTeam11 platform, where they are making these decisions in terms of how to create their teams, how to participate in the contest, and thousands and thousands of people are trying to join the contest per second, and like they're trying to participate as well to engage with the platform. So to be able to cater to those customers in that moment of time, I think data plays huge role in terms of surprising and delighting the customers. For example, giving some customers last minute discounts, giving some customers last minute, say, free entries, or one such example that we were noticing, especially in the my first IPL in 2019. Typically, since that during the peak time, the payment gateway platforms are also experiencing huge traffic on their platforms, and the payment success rates typically go down. Right. Now, in terms of maximizing the revenue, yes, like for example, if a customer wants to play a contest for 50 rupees and they have 45 rupees in their wallet, I have two choices. I can either give them 5 rupees discount so that they can join the contest instantaneously, versus I can push them to one extra step further, where they are going to add money to their wallet, they're going back to the payment gateway, then you're getting the confirmation. That entire exercise takes roughly about 25 to 25 to 30 seconds, and then the wallet, the money gets reflected in the wallet, and then you are joining the contest. So in that peak moment of the time when you're already waiting for the customers to come to the platform, diverting them to a payment gateway just to add 5 rupees may not be the best business decision that we were making. So we started thinking about like how we can reduce this turnaround time, how we can reduce or remove this lag of 30 seconds, and like identify ways to join the customers instantly. And that's when the entire concept of like starting to think about data more holistically came to us. When we started, we have like 7, 8 different and we are not a huge company, or we are not a conglomerate by any means, right? Like we are a small to medium sized business, where essentially we have 7 to 8 different core systems. One system being your attribution system, where you're identifying your customers are coming from which platform. The second is your core operational database. Then the clickstream information that we collect on top of that, identifying whether why a customer is staying on a particular page, which buttons they're clicking, and things like those. And then fulfilling some campaigns based on those things. Now, for us, when we started to work on these use cases, we saw that all this data was segregated in 7 to 8 different pieces, and none of those systems spoke the common language. If one was speaking French, then the other was speaking Greek, and then the third one was speaking Hindi. So like it was very, very difficult for us to paint a picture of one true customer of what MyTeam11's customer would do. If I wanted to maximize the potential of any channel, any marketing channel where I was investing my money on, I also needed to know like how that particular channel is performing as compared to my other channels, and then what is the possibility of like offering, say, last minute discounts or last minute surprise and delight moments to generate revenue as well as create great customer experience for the organization. So I think like that's where we started to think about data more holistically. So rather than thinking about like our use cases and KPIs, our very first objective was like, I need all my data to be in a single source of truth, in the rawest format, which I can then create my use cases on. Whether those use cases are created by my data scientists, whether they are used by the business analyst teams, whether they are being used by the product team to design and create new use cases, whether that is being used by the customer success or the customer support team to help out with the customer problems, or whether that is being used by the technology team as well to identify the problems in their systems, and to debug the issues as well. I first of all need all the information to be in a centralized location in a format that in a singular format for which, and in a raw format which is non-transformed, no ETL done, and then anybody who wants to use that data can essentially run their own processes with their own capabilities and use. I think that was the initial thought. And since then, we have seen huge advantages of the approach that we have taken. Like just last IPL, we saw greater conversions, up to like 30% extra conversions on our customer retention campaigns. We started shifting our focus more on retaining the customers rather than acquiring more and more customers, thereby maximizing our marketing campaigns as well, marketing budgets, and increasing the customer satisfaction, because the focus slightly shifted. And this focus was easier to shift because we started to understand what our customers were telling us, rather than us trying to tap into 7 different systems and understanding like, hey, why Sandeep left from MyTeam11, or why Nishant didn't like MyTeam11 experience, versus having all that information in a single subset.
Great, quite fascinating. So, before we move into the solution piece, so before implementing the data lake, I'm sure you would still be doing some of this. It's not that you were not doing some of this. So how were you doing, and what kind of challenges were you facing that kind of prompted? So I know some of the things you have touched upon, but for the benefit of our audience, that how were you handling that kind of data which your applications were generating, and that was sitting in silos, and is still providing some kind of insights and information to the business to take the right decision, and the challenges in order to do that, what you were facing?
Absolutely. I think data being in different silos was the biggest problem that we used to face earlier. Like each of our system is producing data in some sense or the other, and like when that system is producing data, I'm not able to generate enough insights on it until and unless I'm painting the entire picture. So like I take an example of, if I'm say spending $100,000 on Facebook, I need to understand like how Facebook customers are performing versus the customers that I have acquired through an affiliate partner, or versus a customer that I have acquired through a Google campaign. How does a customer like if I give them say a discount in cricket versus in football? What is the penetration in terms of tier 2 cities versus tier 3 cities versus tier 1 cities? What time do people tend to play the different games, and what is the general demographics of these customers? So all these were very basic questions, and when we started to identify and dig into these, it was on an average taking us like somewhere from 5 to 7 days to get a consistent answer for such simple questions, which are very business defining questions for you when you're creating any strategy. So that was very eye-opening for us, that if our systems are not speaking the common language, if they are operating in silos, if my operational DB doesn't care about like what my clickstream system is doing, if it doesn't care about like what my attribution system is doing, and they don't speak the common tongue, then it becomes very difficult for me to create holistic information about what a particular customer wants. And that was the biggest problem for us. And when we started thinking more and more about this, I think even before we went to the data lake, like as I say, like data lake is definitely not a magical. You have to be very disciplined and consistent in terms of like how you want to produce your data, because the very first step is that how you want to produce and capture the data. Like we spent a ton of time in defining what all information we wanted to capture. And then we spent a lot of time in terms of architecting and defining like how we wanted to capture that information, which format will each of the information be captured. The rest of the part is much easier. The rest of the part hardly takes like 30-40% of the effort. But like I think the help that we got from Umbrella and the AWS teams in terms of how do we define architecturally the information we wanted to capture, how do we define the structure of the information, I think that was the biggest critical pieces to our successful journey.
Great. So, I would finally want you to elaborate a little bit more on the solution, what you have implemented in terms of architecture and the flow of the application for our audience, please.
Absolutely. So as I said, like the challenges that we were facing was there was huge amount of operational data being generated from 7 to 8 different systems in each of the silos. The velocity of data, as I already said, like at peak, we handle roughly about 100K requests per second. So like at any given point of time, the requests are in the ballpark of like 5,000 to 10,000 requests per second. So like from that, capturing all the information in real time and like correlating it back to and creating sort of marketing campaigns and creating better customer experiences is a humongous ask. So very first thing we wanted to do was we use a system called AppSor for capturing the clickstream and customer behavior analytics data on top of our SQL Server operational database workloads. We wanted to tie these two pieces together because, for example, if I'm creating a team but I'm not joining the context, then that information is not captured in my operational database, but it is captured in my clickstream data. So I need to be able to piece it together as to like how many customers are starting to take a decision in terms of joining the or participating in a contest, but are not making that choice. And if they're not making that choice, why they're not making that choice? Like that was the primary fundamental problem we started with. So we connected these two different systems. One is the customer events data, then second is the operational data. And our goal was to bring them to a common platform. We used AWS Glue, which is a great service in terms of defining all the metadata, setting up all the processes, and creating those pipeline funnels so as to ingest the data loads. Helped by the PySpark, the Python Spark module, which Umbrella has created, and then the JDBC pipeline, which was implemented. The raw layer, as you rightly said earlier as well, the raw data is stored today in S3, and S3 is negligibly cheap. Like and that is why we chose S3, as it speaks the AWS language. It is a native tool, and that is where traditionally we have been storing all of our data. So like it was a natural choice for using S3. Then we use Glue to sort of classify the data and create the metadata for it, and like do the transformational workloads on it. We transform that data, and then from that we either the transformed data can be used by data scientists directly. If they want to use the raw layer, they are more than welcome to use the raw layer. In fact, that is what we encourage more. For the analysts team, the teams that are creating the KPIs, the dashboards for tracking the real-time performance of the campaigns, for tracking the success of the campaigns, for tracking like why the customers are leaving, what are the customers liking and not liking. We use Redshift, and on top of Redshift, like we power them using Power BI, and like we create dashboards to make quick decisions by visualizing the campaigns and things like those. On top of this, we have access management controls, obviously built in using IAM. So that and as you rightly said, like security is extremely critical, like especially when you are dealing with so many critical pieces of information. So IAM helps us to manage that. Like not anybody can get access to anything, and we are able to access control very sophisticatedly using IAM. We have different logging and monitoring tools enabled using CloudWatch, where if something is not working as expected, like we get to know about it immediately using the SNS alert system. So that's the very high level architecture that we use, and it's fairly straightforward to implement. As I said, like the most of the amount that you spend in creating the framework around it. You spend in creating the overall architectural design on it, rather than putting these pieces together. Because once you know like which pieces to put together, I think the piece of the puzzle becomes much clearer.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for explaining the solution architecture, and I'm pretty sure that this will serve as a foundation to many more data sources and the business use cases going forward. So please share the benefits which you have taken after the implementation of this, and your future use cases, or the business advantages what you are thinking Data Lake can help you achieve.
I think very first for us was segregation of duties between analysts and developers. Earlier, because most of the production data or operational data was sitting in SQL Server, it was very difficult. It was always a conflict of interest for developers when management had the data request, like, hey, I'm planning this campaign, like I need this information. So they would have to stop their job, which is coding and testing, and basically pull the data for us, because they were the sole owners of the SQL Server databases. Right. So that had to be changed. And for that to change, like we had to not just change how we were producing the data, but how we were storing the data and like how we were consuming the data as well. So like that cultural differentiation took some time, but ultimately that has helped us a lot in terms of segregating the duties, in terms of creating different responsibilities between different team verticals. Now we have created a more of a democratic approach towards data, where each of the team, like for example, if it's a marketing team or customer success team or a customer retention team, they all need to be well versed with the kind of data that they need, and they can interact with the data lake on their own. They have all the tools and technologies available at their behest to make their decisions without being dependent on the different teams that they were earlier dependent on. So that has been a great win for us. Couple of other use cases that we identified very quickly was like fraud prevention. So like being a real money gaming company, we see fraud rates that are generally higher than any other normal business, where people try to take advantage of different sign-up bonuses, different kind of bonuses, or like rewards that are available at their behest. And then you also have to be regulatory compliant as well. So like, for example, if Andhra Pradesh or Telangana doesn't allow real money gaming to operate, then you have to make sure that your customers are not bypassing the systems and then sort of misusing the platform as well. So like those are the things that we have that while we were able to identify earlier, the speed at which we are able to identify those things now has improved very significantly. We are also planning to deploy machine learning models on top of it. Like, for example, many times we see customers committing fraud unknowing. That they're not aware that, say in a game of poker, like I can't deliberately lose to somebody, right? Like that's called chip dumping. So like something of that sort is not allowed on the platform, or is not just frowned upon, but it can lead you to a ban. So, and not just on the first time, but if you're noticing that somebody is going into that pattern, then we have started to build AI models which can detect those kind of things happening in the before they even happen and intervene beforehand, like sort of starting to give customers warning. And they were not just improving the customer experience, because many a times we have seen when we detect fraud, by the time it is already late in the customer life cycle. So when you stop the fraud, or like when you ask the customer to say re-verify or do the re-KYC, then they say, if you already knew this information, then why didn't you come to me? Like, why are you asking me now when I'm trying to withdraw my money, right? So these kind of things needed to change, and those are the things that we are developing, and all that is possible because now we speak the common tongue in terms of the data that we capture, in terms of all the information that is being gathered. Some of the other use cases that we are planning are things like very instant discounts at the very last moment, like creating AI models that take revenue as one component, that start thinking about that. If my risk appetite for this particular contest is say 5-10%, then the model can itself transform how it want to operate the discount, rather than analysts making the decisions. The model itself can start to think about like. Nishant should get 5 rupee discount versus Sandeep should get 10 rupee discount versus Nitish should get just 2 rupee discount. So all these things we are starting to experiment with the availability of data, and it has definitely helped us improve on the customer experience. It has directly led into us like generating more revenue per customer as we were doing, more than what we were doing.
Okay, great. It's really fascinating. Whenever we speak, and the way you talk passionately about the product and the technology, and how these things can be leveraged for the enhancement of the customer experience ultimately is really very fascinating. Thank you so much, Nitish, for joining us today and sharing your experience of building the data lake. However, there is one last question that is coming to my mind, because all projects come with their own set of challenges. So any learning you would like to share with our audience, which you would have gone through during the implementation, as you would want to make our audience aware of?
I think, and that's a very interesting question. I think like typically any kind of transformation is a huge challenge in terms of that it's different than what you're used to do, right? So the expectations need to be set that way as well. because typically the life cycle of a change that we have seen is like the change initially slows you down until you adapt to the change. So obviously, like by going to the data lake, and making the data lake and the data availability the number one priority in the organization. I think in the hindsight, we should have also adjusted the cost of a couple of things in terms of rolling out new features in the market, which we initially didn't do, which led to some friction in the organization. Because obviously all the different product heads want to implement their features, and like they're important features, but like all of those things were sort of put on hold because of the data lake implementation and the limitation of what we wanted to do. Because for us, what was very important was while we were solving the existing problem, we didn't want to magnify the existing problem as well, that by contributing on top of it. So that is something that I think we should have done better in terms of walking all the stakeholders through. And data and creating such kind of a radical transformation is not just the responsibility of one single team. It's sort of a responsibility of the entire organization. So the entire organization will have to think very holistically about like what it means to me. They have to be aligned to the vision, and I think that is something that we could have done better culturally. I think that first thing that comes to my mind.
I think that's a very, very important point, because what happens whenever we talk about certain technology driven products, we go so narrow and focused only on the technical aspect of the implementation, and we many a times missed the aspects which are not technical but maybe more important than technology, because technology, the implementation of the or the use of the technology is for the benefit of the business, not for just for the sake of it. So unless the business priorities and the challenges are aligned with the technological implementation, projects become unviable or becomes challenging to complete sometimes. So it's very, very critical insight, I would say, you have shared. So thank you so much, Nitish. Thank you so much for joining us and sparing your time and sharing your experience of data lake building on AWS cloud platform with us and our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nishant. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. So with this, we have come to the end of our presentation. Just one more slide I would like to share with our audience. That with our kind of experience, what we have achieved by working with organizations like MyTeam11 and other couple of examples what I have shared in our introduction and the set of customers we have worked with. We have gained a certain set of knowledge and the insight which we would definitely like to share. And as I said that we have built a framework that expedite the overall implementation of data lake projects. So we would like to share an offer with the audience that they can leverage. They can work with us for a very well defined business use case, or for the building of data lake, which can become a foundation for a data platform in their organization for many more use cases to be implemented and many more data sources to be integrated. In this scope, we are saying that in 6 weeks of time, we will integrate 2 of the data sources. We will ingest, let's say if these are RDBMS kind of data sources, so 30, 40, 50 kind of tables we can ingest, and a couple of file structure formats if there is other type of data sources. And we can develop 2 user reports and 1 dashboard in the fixed cost of $12,000 US. And our deliverables will be on the same lines. We'll be sharing the architecture. We'll be implementing your data analytics platform on the cloud, integrating your data sources, building the data pipeline for data ingestion, data cleansing, enrichment, and developing the transformation jobs for the report use case. Those would be identified for this assignment. Anyone who are interested can please contact sales@umbrellainfocare.com or info@umbrellainfocare.com, and you may also dial in the mobile number shown on the screen. With this, I would thanks once again, Nitish, and thank you so much, Sandeep, for giving us this opportunity to share our experience on this platform. And I would like to hand over back to Sandeep.
Thank you. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you, Nitish. I think we are just on time. We'll have time for one question of the list of questions that we have. So, and I'll take the opportunity to ask this question to Nitish. So the question is, Nitish, what is the cost trade-off for a data lake implementation for your organization or any other organization? I think what it means is that does it make cost sense by doing this?
Thank you, Sandeep, for the question. I think the question is pretty more deep than it sounds on the surface. Like um, building a data lake by no means is cheap. Like although if we look at the direct cost in terms of say AWS workloads, in terms of the partner cost, in terms of consulting costs, in terms of your own engineer salaries and like other operational costs as well, like it's not that high to build a sophisticated data lake solution. However, in terms of the way your organization will have to adapt to the solution, the way because it impacts pretty much everybody. Like imagine being a customer service representative before any kind of data lake. Like you are speaking to one sort of a database which has been sitting there for say last 10-15 years and it works seamlessly, and it's a beautiful job. Like you come in, you get emails from the customer, you have a system that you type in your query in, and you're essentially getting the information back. Now ideally your experience should remain exactly the same, right? And that's where the technology has to make sure that the end customers, which are these people that are first line of defense in terms of your B2B customers or B2C customers, are able to service the clients and service the business as they were doing before. So I think in terms of those impacts, the cost is pretty high, but the ease of business that it gets, like essentially by having your system speaking the exact same language, I think that is something that has to be calculated internally. And in most cases, I've seen like data lake projects over the next 3-4 years, like pay for themselves and generate more business value. Simple reason being, your all the systems are producing consistent data. They are storing data, they are generating data consistently, which is being stored in a consistent platform and can be used by anybody in the rawest format. So one such thing that we typically see in the traditional data warehousing is the data is transformed from the raw source. And for some reason, if you want to identify like where exactly this field came from, typically your documentation either falls short or the engineer who coded it a couple of years ago is no longer with the organization. So like that's where it becomes the challenge, that you lose the sanctity of the originality of the data. And that's where data lake essentially becomes very, very important. And then all the other applications, all the other use cases that you deploy on top of it are speaking the consistent language. And that is the most important win that I see from the data lake. In terms of cost wise, I think each business has to do some sort of NPV analysis by themselves. But generally, I've seen if you're an organization which are becoming digital first and going in that direction, I think having a sophisticated one-stop shop for all your data needs is kind of a must.
Sure. Thanks for that, Nitish. And so essentially, having this ability to have insights from the data and this ability to innovate based on the data is a clear business benefit that we can think of looking from an overall cost impact point of view as well. So I think we are at the end of time, and we have come to the end of the session. For all the other questions which are not been we are sort of able to answer today, we will definitely reach out to you over email with our answers. So with that, a big thank you to Nishant and Nitish for your time and being so generous with your time in sort of taking the session today. Likewise, we want to thank the audience for spending time with us. A gentle reminder to fill up our post-session survey so that we can continue to deliver the information that are relevant and useful for your cloud computing journey. And finally, if you're interested in attending other sessions in this online event, please refer to the link that we have shared in the chat box. We do look forward to seeing you at future AWS events. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sandeep.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
Nishant.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Nitish. Thanks, Sandeep.